Now we will see what exclusion is and how it is related to poverty. So when the let's make a diagram for this. When this word comes, this is a society, but this part is left out of something, then we can say that this part of society is excluded. Now, excluded from what? Maybe uh, economic representation or political representation, or from the cultural sphere of society, or you can say social sphere of society. So this is basically exclusion. It means being left out. Like Ruth Lister ma'am in her Poverty 2004 said that exclusion refers to ways in which individuals may become cut off from the full involvement in the wider society, or prevention of individuals or group from having the same opportunities that are available to the majority of the population. Suppose in this diagram, what facilities were available to this population were not available to this little section, and they were forcefully maybe prevented from participating, or they themselves do not want to participate, whatever is the reason, but they're excluded from mainstream society. They not have the enough opportunities or not having the enough representation. Then poverty is one of the fundamental causes of exclusion. It leads to multiple vulnerabilities and hence multiple form of exclusions. Now take an example. There is a poor rickshaw puller. Have you ever talked to the people who are engaged in very low professions, that they don't really care about which government is coming, what major program are happening in the country, what decisions the government is taking, because they really think that it didn't matter much to them, it is not going to change or have any impact on their life. Neither they are going to decide the policy of this nation, they are neither they are in academia to support the government. Hence, they're basically excluded from being a part of this nation's growth. They have lot of vulnerabilities, like women. If women have only 14% representation in parliament, do you don't think that there must be some issues which have been left out to be discussed? And if there had been 50% reservation, we would have seen a better face of women in India, maybe. So that this is the thing, that poverty and also the cultural thing is also one of the fundamental causes of exclusion. But poverty mainly leads to what? Economic exclusion. Women are also not being able to part of political sphere because women are excluded from economic sphere. They don't have enough economic liberty to contest election. They always need some support. They cannot go alone in the campaigning. So this is how exclusion actually happens in society. Differential treatment, as I talked about, how it treats women, unequal opportunities. The people from lower strata of society have been given unequal opportunities, like scheduled caste, scheduled tribe women, or say disabled people. And gradually, when you are provided low opportunities, marginalization happens, which means once a person is poor, they're going to be more pushed into that cycle because they are not provided enough opportunities. Then hence basically these are the tools of social exclusion through which you can exclude a particular category from participating in the development of that particular society. Social exclusion is not accidental. If someone is excluded, if women are excluded from political sphere, do you think it's accidental? Not at all. There are all social factors behind it. It's systematic. It is the result of structural features of society in India. Now, what are these features? Suppose I mentioned these three categories: women, Dalits, and tribal. Now, what were the features? The features were patriarchal society, we had casteism, we had untouchability, and both of this also led to poverty for these sections. What tribal people had, they were socially excluded because of their geographical isolation, also their cultural isolation, and because of that they were never been able to be part of mainstream society, and they are basically excluded from social process. If you go to parliament and if you see the representation of tribal people, it is very very low. So that's how they're excluded, and this also lead to social exclusion. Tribal people are not, if you come to Delhi, how many tribal people are living in Delhi and using the opportunities which the city is providing, or in Bombay? So this is basically social exclusion. It is not accidental, it is systematic. There have been a lot of factors which stop many people from coming to big cities and to use the opportunities, or not even to the big city, even in tier 2 or tier 3 suffer a lot of problems. Now, what different thinkers said about it? The first one is homelessness is one of the worst form of social exclusion according to sociologist Anthony Giddens. Now, homelessness get you out from government records. You don't have a shelter. You are devoid of basic provisions of living a life, and you have to be on the street. There are thousands of growth opportunities and you are not a part of this. You are a homeless person. So that is also a form of social exclusion. Elliot Curry in her studies found that exclusion also lead to delinquent behavior. You must have heard lots of criminal theories that a person get into delinquency when they are alone, they are not participated, they are not represented, they are not heard. The voiceless people always mostly turns to crime to make their voice heard in the society. So it can also lead to delinquent behavior. Apart from economic exclusion, because it is just one part, because of poverty, exclusion is also practiced on several other bases like race. For example, American society, the blacks are excluded from so many things, like even from the housing provisions till 1960s. What do you think? It is a social exclusion. Now, economic exclusion is just that part that blacks are very less represented in good jobs. So they don't have much economic capital, and that is small part of the whole social exclusion. Another example of this is apartheid. That is one of the example of social exclusion which is still prevalent in South Africa despite legal ban on it after the efforts of Nelson Mandela, sir, and his such a huge jail decade. Despite doing all of this, apartheid is still prevalent in South Africa. So what is this? This is social exclusion. They are economically excluded, and that ultimately a small part of whole social exclusion. In India, Dalits, or the ex untouchable caste, tribals, women, and the differently abled are the worst sufferer of exclusion. Because suppose one person belong to a differently able category, they are not even able to access many offices because they don't have provisions to make such people work. That's